I just went out to the helicopter, right, we said goodbye. That's a tradition. As long as before it used to be a stagecoach, and then helicopters came along. But that's been a tradition. You go out and you do that. And we stood there for 10 minutes, and I'll tell you what, people would not have been able to get through that day. That was cold. It was sort of interesting. Don't let the sun fool you. Tell me something. Sunny days can get very cold, can't they? Because that was so freezing yesterday. You couldn't have gotten through it. It would have been. And the answer is no, it wasn't security. With that being said, I thought the Capitol, the Rotunda, was beautiful. 72 degrees, unbelievable sound. You know, it's like being in an opera house. I could see people wanting to do it there rather than outside.
Why did you remove John Bolton's security clearance, sir?
Because I think there was enough time. We take a job. You take a job, you want to do a job. We're not going to have security on people for the rest of their lives. Why should we? I thought he was a very dumb person, but I used him well because every time people saw me come into a meeting with John Bolton standing behind me, they thought that he'd attack them because he was a warmonger. He's the one that got us involved, along with Cheney and a couple of others, convinced Bush, which was a terrible decision, to blow up the Middle East. You know, we blew up the Middle East and we left. Then we got nothing out of it except a lot of death. We killed a lot of people. And John Bolton was, one of those guys, a stupid guy. But no, you can't have that for life. You shouldn't expect it for life.
That meeting you mentioned with President Zelensky, will that take place here? And when and where will you meet with
I don't know. I mean, look, President Zelensky would like to have peace. He's told me that very strongly. He'd like to have peace, but it takes two to tango. We'll see what happens.
When will you meet with President Putin?
Anytime they want, I'll meet. I'd like to see that end. Millions of people are being killed, and they're being killed. It's a vicious situation, and they're now largely soldiers. A lot of people have been killed in the cities. They look like demolition sites. Buildings, massive buildings bombed and coming down. The thing with Ukraine is that many more people died than you're reporting. You're not reporting the real numbers, and I'm not blaming you for that. I'm blaming maybe our government for not wanting to release those numbers. Many more people died than what you know about. When those big buildings come down and they say 2 people were injured, no. Many people, thousands of people are being killed. But the real killing now is on the war front. It's a very flat land. And the only thing that stops a bullet is somebody's body. And you have young soldiers. So Russia's lost about 800,000 soldiers now. Ukraine's lost about 600 or 700,000. I think the numbers are low that they're giving out. But they've lost massive numbers of young soldiers. And that war should stop. It's very flat. It's beautiful farmland, and it's flat and really beautiful in a different kind of a way, but they don't have any protection. The only thing that stops a bullet is a body. And those bodies are stopping a lot of bullets, and they're being decimated, both sides.
Your conversation with President Xi, what did you tell him in terms of when to expect tariffs? And what can he do to avoid it?
About which one? About tariffs? We didn't talk too much about tariffs other than he knows where I stand. Look, I put large tariffs on China. I've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars. Until I was president, China never paid not 10 cents to the United States. With me, they paid hundreds of $600 billion or so, or more than that even, of tariffs. And if I didn't do that, you wouldn't have a steel mill open in the United States right now. You wouldn't have one steel mill open in the United States. So what I did is I saved the steel industry. I saved other industries, too, with other tariffs. Other countries are big abusers also. It's not just China. China's an abuser, but the European Union is very, very bad to us. They treat us very, very badly. They don't take our cars. They don't take our cars at all. They don't take our farm products, essentially. They don't take very much. We have a $350 billion deficit with the European Union. They treat us very, very badly. So they're going to be in for tariffs. It's the only way you're going to get back. It's the only way you're going to get fairness. You can't get fairness unless you do that. But the European Union's treated us very badly. But essentially everybody treats us badly. Everybody treats us badly. Yes, go ahead. Because we allow them to. Because we've had stupid people doing this, and we can't have. I'd like to have these three people negotiate for us, just for 1 week, and we'd be a rich country again. But we'll be rich.
Mr. President, on AI data centers, will you rescind President Biden's executive order that opens up federal land?
On which centers?
On data centers. Will you rescind President Biden's executive order that opens up federal lands for data centers and energy production?
No, I wouldn't do that. That sounds to me like it's something that I would like. I'd like to see federal lands opened up for data centers. I think they're going to be very important. Again, we have a lot of competition for that. So it's an honor to have these three great people, great CEOs and great geniuses, all three. It's an honor that they want to come to our country, but we're going to make it as easy as we can for them because other countries want them to. I'm going to have to go now. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Question, do you have TikTok on your phone?
No, but I think I might put it there. I think I'll get it right now. By the way, again, we won the young vote. I think I won it through TikTok. So I have a warm spot in my heart for TikTok. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
A bit of deja vu on day 2 in term 2. Thank you for being with us here in Washington. This is The Hill on NewsNation. I'm Blake Berman. We've been listening now for the better part of about 45 minutes or so to President Trump. He was there inside the Roosevelt Room just outside of the Oval Office with a big announcement on this day. Some $500 billion potentially over the upcoming 4 years in investments from some of the biggest names as it relates to data centers. But as we have seen before, and we can promise we will see again, the president then opening it up to questions, and he went through a host of issues. President Trump vowing that there will be tariffs potentially as soon as February 1st on China, to our neighbors to the north and to the south, Mexico and Canada, about, he said, 25%. There was a bunch of news there on the international front. Lots of questions about the war in Ukraine and how he might handle that with Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky. Donald Trump, the commander-in-chief, saying sanctions are likely on Russia if that war doesn't wind down soon. You heard him ask there at the very end about TikTok back here at home. The president saying he has a warm spot in his heart as there is a big debate, even within his own party right now, about what to do with TikTok. He supports it. Many Republicans, though, say it's a national security interest. And President Trump, when asked, said he would be okay if Elon Musk potentially were to buy it. The president outlined what a deal could potentially even look like, saying, you know what, if it is sold, maybe the U.S. could own half of it. Of course, one of the big stories on this day, the second day of the administration, lots of questions for the president about the January 6th pardons, some 1,500 in total. President Trump asked, how can you support law enforcement if some of those who you pardon assaulted law enforcement? And all this, as I mentioned, came after that $500 billion announcement. Sam Altman, Masayoshi Son, Larry Ellison, some of the biggest names in tech there with the president just a day after he was joined by Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Tim Cook, Sundar Pichai, and Mark Zuckerberg. Again, we thank you for being with us tonight here on The Hill. Out live to our Kelly Meyer, live on the North Lawn. Kelly, I didn't even get into that big meeting that led into all this, which is the president meeting behind closed doors with Republican leadership as we saw the quote-unquote shock and awe on day 1 with all those executive orders. Now comes the hard part of all this. Yes, Republicans control Washington, but now they're trying to figure out what to do with all the legislating.
That's right, Blake. And I just want to start out by saying, I don't know if I'm ever going to see you again. So I think I'm going to be at the White House for a little while. I don't know if I'll be on set with the way the speed of this administration is going right now. I mean, we just had another impromptu press conference as he was going out to make that big announcement about the investment in AI that you mentioned. But it was already a busy day. You mentioned that meeting, that private meeting that he had with Republican leadership, from Senate Majority Leader John Thune to House Speaker Mike Johnson, here at the White House meeting with Trump for quite a while, pushing back that initial announcement. And you're right, this is where he has to get with the leadership on Capitol Hill, in the House, in the Senate. They have the power. Republicans control both. But now this is where the rubber meets the road, where everything he talked about on the campaign trail gets done, or he tries to get done. What he did over the last 24 hours or more is sign these executive orders and these executive actions. These are things he could do on his own without them. The rest, he's going to need some help, and he wants to make sure that his party is in lockstep. Those members on Capitol Hill are in lockstep with him. They didn't even come out here to speak with us outside of the West Wing afterwards, because they were letting the president speak for himself on this, and then have this press conference and announcement tonight. So a lot to go through there in terms of news, and you went off the top about it, but that is a big investment that they're talking about, the $500 billion to invest in this, what they're calling Stargate, over the next 4 years. And they mentioned some of the applications that they're building with that, Blake. Electronic health records, not just maintaining, but doctors better understanding the conditions of their patients and the healthcare plans for the future. They essentially said this is the promise of AI and the promise of the future. Blake.
Kelly Meyer, live on the North Lawn. Kelly, thank you. Joining me now, Mick Mulvaney, former chief of staff in the first White House. NewsNation contributor, smile on your face, because I know what you're thinking, Mick, same as I. Deja vu, here we are again. You're just watching it unfold. Here's what I noticed, Mick, and hello, nice to see you as always. There was that quote-unquote shock and awe yesterday, right? All these executive orders out the gate. And I'm going, wait a minute, I didn't see anything on tariffs. He said he was going to do tariffs on day one, and now he's talking about February 1st. So all of this, and there were a lot of questions on this, Mick, all of this that was highly orchestrated, highly calculated, highly delivered out of the gate, why did he punt on that?
Because he had 757 other things to do, I suppose. Look, I can't wait for the next 4 years.
But I mean, he then promised on those other 756, did he not?
He did. Look, my guess is that what you're seeing is the beginning of the negotiation. You know, I see Panama as part of a negotiation with China. I see TikTok as part of a negotiation with China, and I see the threat of tariffs as part of a negotiation with China. Look, you don't have to worry. If you really, really want tariffs, they're coming. That's not the issue, just because he didn't get to them last night. But they're absolutely, when the man tells you he loves the word, it's one of the most beautiful words in his vocabulary. He's serious about that. He's the best I've ever seen at creating leverage, and tariffs create leverage. So you're going to see it. Okay. But I can't believe out of all the things we could talk about, you're talking about the stuff that he didn't actually do, because he's done so much in the last 36 hours.
We covered all that yesterday. As you know, Mick, you were on air with me throughout the day. Let me ask you about something that I heard there from Trump, which is going to be an issue that your party is going to have to take up. And I should start saying President Trump, right? Because that's where we are right now. Which is TikTok, and it divides the party. It is one of those things, as we've discussed, that does not neatly fall along party lines. One of the rare things that Democrats and Republicans in this town came together on, which was to essentially ban it or force a sale of it. And the president there said he was open to the idea of Elon Musk potentially buying it. And if that's the case, how do you think that will fit here in Washington, especially within your party?
Yeah, I'm not as concerned about it as maybe some other people might be, because that's about 4 moves down the chessboard. And what didn't get asked today, and of course it's an impromptu presser, so you don't blame the press for not having all their questions ready. But look, in order for anybody to buy it, and I've heard rumors about it makes sense to have a discussion about whether or not Elon Musk, who owns X, would buy TikTok. He's a natural place to sort of look to if you're going to look to buy a big tech platform, right? I don't understand this part about the United States owning half of it unless they're going to make it a utility, but that's another conversation. Look, there's a threshold consideration. China doesn't want to sell it. ByteDance doesn't want to sell it. You can't, unless you're going to shut it down, and right now they don't seem to want to sell it. So I think they have to cross that bridge before they start worrying about who's going to buy it.
Okay. Nick Mulvaney, we're up on time. I got to leave it there. Thanks for being here with us. Talk to you soon. Appreciate it. Nick Mulvaney, NewsNation contributor, former Trump White House chief of staff. See you. You got it. All right. Still to come. Here on the Hill, Elon Musk facing multiple lawsuits against DOGE just minutes after the inauguration. And the National Cathedral bishop, did you see this today? They went there for prayer. They got a lecture. What was all that all about inside church? I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. Welcome to Washington. This is the center of politics. We're back in 4 minutes. Nation, as President Trump holds back on officially imposing tariffs, he says he'll establish a new federal agency called the External Revenue Service to collect them.
It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources. The American dream will soon be back and thriving like never before to restore competence and effectiveness to our federal government.
The Republican congressman from the state of Georgia, Buddy Carter, has introduced a bill called the Fair Tax Act. It calls for abolishing the IRS and rewriting the current tax code. The congressman from Georgia joins me live here on The Hill. Thanks for being with us. Nice to see you as always, Congressman. You heard Trump, the president there, sort of outline what could come in the next 10 days. Thank you for staying with us. I appreciate it. Are you surprised that he didn't deliver on this day one and is sort of waiting to see how this plays out?
No, I'm not surprised. Listen, Donald Trump knows what he's doing. I learned long ago not to question people who are billionaires about business. The man knows how to negotiate, and he knows what he's doing here. Yeah, he did say he was going to do it on day one. He didn't do it on day one. I suspect that something changed. Maybe he's close to closing a deal or something along those lines. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that I have complete confidence in his ability.
You want to abolish the IRS as part of the fair the fair tax code. You were a member of Congress back in 2017 when Republicans went about this the first go around. They didn't go down that line, didn't go down that road, Congressman. Instead, they put in the tax code. That's going to have to be taken up here later this year. Here's one of your colleagues, Congressman Don Bacon, talking to our Connell McShane just yesterday about the challenges that lie ahead, and I want to get your reaction on the other side.
No, there won't be a rubber stamp. In the end, we're an independent branch of government, an equal branch. And with a 3-seat majority, it's going to be hard. And we're going to have a 1-seat majority for about 3 or 4 months.
Republicans didn't do this in 2017. To be realistic, Congressman, and you know this, they're not going to do it now, your proposal. So what do you think the outcome is here? And is Congressman Bacon right that whatever happens, this is going to be really hard?
Well, it is going to be hard. Anytime you have as slim a majority as we have, and you have a diverse caucus, a diverse conference like we have with independent thinkers, then of course it's hard. But we can do hard things, and we have big ideas in Washington. You know, Washington, D.C. used to be about big ideas. I don't know what happened. The fair tax is a big idea. Doing away with unelected bureaucrats who have more power over your paycheck than you do, I think that's a big idea. I think it's an idea we ought to follow. I mean, after all, and with the fair tax, it's simple. It's practical. If you make $40,000 a year, you'll take home $40,000 a year. If you're going to buy a boat, you're going to pay taxes on it. And look, everybody talks about the wealthy. They don't pay their own fair share of taxes. Well, the wealthy are going to buy a yacht. And let me tell you, I'm not buying a yacht. I'll probably buy a John boat. And the taxes on a yacht, they're a lot more than they are on a John boat.
TikTok, you voted for the ban or divest, and President Trump is trying to essentially save it. Do you believe he's in the wrong?
No. Look.
How?
It was not a ban. There's a big difference between a ban and a divestment. What we simply said was that the ban, there is a big difference between a ban and a divestment. What we simply said was that ByteDance, which is owned by the Chinese Communist Party, cannot own TikTok. TikTok can continue as long as it's owned by an American country or an ally of ours.
But you voted for a January 19th deadline, and now that's being extended.
It is, and that was part of the legislation. It gives the president the ability to extend it if he feels like there is progress being made in selling the company and divesting the company to an American interest or to an ally of ours. Evidently, Donald Trump is a great negotiator. He wants the opportunity to negotiate. We are all on the same page here. We're singing from the same song sheet. Donald Trump does not want the Chinese Communist Party to own ByteDance, to own TikTok, nor do we. We're all on the same page.
Congressman, I know you got to run. Head back there to the halls of the Capitol. Thanks for being with us, Congressman Buddy Carter, Republican from Georgia. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You got it. Still much more ahead. Here on the Hill, the president grants pardons to the January 6th defendants right after former President Biden pardons a handful of his own family members. The reaction on both sides up on the Hill today. And DOGE already involved in multiple lawsuits. Now Elon Musk threatening to fight back when the Hill returns.
Toda la humanidad. Y es un gran honor y le doy las gracias al presidente Trump por esta oportunidad. I just said I saved a bunch of money by switching to Geico. That's what I said. So.
All right. So a bit of levity there from Secretary Marco Rubio today, starting his first day on the job as Secretary of State. He is the first official member of Donald Trump's new cabinet. The Senate listening to Congresswoman Elise Stefanik's testimony today to serve as the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Still no time frame yet for the Attorney General Pam Bondi. But President Trump's view of justice squarely in the spotlight tonight. Among his first actions, the president pardoning nearly all of the January 6th Capitol riot defendants. Here's what he said just moments ago.
I thought their sentences were ridiculous and excessive. One of the guys took down a flag that was an anti-American flag, and he was given years in jail. I don't know the exact number, but he was given many years in jail. I thought it was very excessive.
More than 200 have been let go from prison, but that process still seems to be playing out. Our Brian Enton outside the D.C. Central Detention Center with what he's been witnessing today. Brian?
Yeah, it's been interesting, Blake. It's oddly and strangely almost like a full circle moment. I was at the Capitol on January 6th. Now here I am outside the jail in D.C. as the January 6th prisoners have slowly been trickling out. Almost 1,500 pardons President Trump signed off yesterday. It's been a slow process. You said it, about 200 or so. Every hour or so we hear some commotion and we turn behind us and people sort of run towards the doors and they'll let someone else out. There's a lot of family and January 6th prisoner supporters here. A little while ago, a woman named Rachel Powell came out, and I ran up and talked to her along with all of the other reporters. It was interesting because she was very calm and nice, and then I was reading her police report. She was known as Pink Hat Lady, Bullhorn Lady. You may remember her from some of the videos. She was wearing a pink hat. They say that she used an ice axe and a battering ram to bust her way into the Capitol. She was let out today. This is what she said.
Liv and I, Liv's another J6 woman who's still in there. We watched the inauguration and the speeches, and we heard tidbits being dropped here and there about January 6ers, and we waited and waited and waited because we knew that we were going to get pardoned by the late afternoon. We knew we were getting pardoned.
So it was interesting, Blake. She said that they were watching the inauguration inside the jail, knew they were going to be pardoned. Around 1 a.m., she was moved to a holding cell. And then this afternoon, she was brought out. And again, the process is ongoing. Some states are taking longer than others, but they continue to come out. Blake?
Brian Enton, live for us just down the road here in Washington, D.C. Brian, thank you. So that decision came just hours after the outgoing president, Joe Biden, had his own unprecedented decision, as he pardoned 5 of his family members quite literally in the final minutes of his presidency, and just days and weeks after several controversial pardons of his own involving violent criminals. Or Joe Khalil today pressing lawmakers from both sides of the aisle of these historic decisions. Republicans not wanting to talk, the opposite for Democrats. Our Joe Khalil is here with me now. What'd you hear? What'd you find up there?
Yeah, so we wanted to ask Democrats whether they thought it was proper for Joe Biden to pardon members of his own family preemptively, and officials wanted to ask Republicans whether they thought it was proper for him to be pardoning these January 6 rioters. Maybe a shocker, not a lot of people wanted to talk. There were some Democrats, willing to criticize Joe Biden. This is one. Take a listen, Senator Tammy Duckworth.
I think President Biden made mistakes as well. I don't think he should have gave preemptive pardons to the January 6th committee, and I don't think he should have given pardons to his own family members. So he made a mistake as well.
So, Blake, that was the exception. Most Democrats, you ask about this, immediately pivot to blaming Trump and January 6th. Now, Republicans, when we ask them, most of the time, this is what happened. Take a look. Can I ask you about both sets of pardons, about Donald Trump pardoning the...
There's a lot going on. Why don't you get us, contact my office and we'll get you a response.
Hey, Senator Ernst, can I ask you about both sets of pardons, about Trump's January 6th pardons and then about President Biden's pardons, too? I wanted to ask about pardons on both fronts, Biden's pardons and Trump's pardons, if we could, just for one comment.
Mike, I think you got his number.
Yeah, we got Mike.
Call my mom.
Tell her we say hello.
Tell her we say hello.
So got that a lot. Again, some exceptions, one or two, but by and large, lots of running away from us.
Joe Khalil, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Meanwhile, President Trump and Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency already facing lawsuits. They allege that DOGE doesn't comply with the Federal Advisory Committee Act. It's a law that governs the establishment and operations of advisory committees. Musk has responded saying in part, quote, "Can someone start a lawsuit counter? How long until we hit triple digits?" Joining me now is Robert Weissman. He is the co-president of Public Citizen. That is a progressive consumer rights watchdog. Public Citizen, one of the parties suing DOGE. Robert, thanks for being with us tonight. Tell me why you're doing this right off the bat.
Well, this DOGE that's called a department is actually an advisory committee. It's going to give advice about fundamental operations of the government, what regulations should be cut, what programs should be cut. It has to comply with the law, which requires that the committee have a fair and balanced membership, that it operate according to a charter, that it have open meetings, that it comply with open records rules, and there's no sign that it's going to do any of that.
So there are Democrats who want to be involved. They are posting on social media. That's as open as it gets, is it not?
No, posting on social media is not participating in the committee process. It's not being at meetings. It's not knowing what their agenda is. We really have no idea what DOGE is doing. We don't know who's working for it. We don't know who's paying for it. We really don't even know where they're working, how they're being deployed to different agencies, and what their agenda is.
I read your statement, Robert, and you say this is, quote, beset both by conflicts of interest and the biased and extremist views of the libertarian billionaire class, end quote. Is your real problem here that these are billionaires? If they weren't billionaires, would you be fine with it? It seems like an attack on billionaires, that you're worried about billionaires.
Well, I'll tell you what, a committee made up of billionaires is not fair and balanced. That's a fact. What we know from what Elon Musk has said and what Donald Trump has said is
what's wrong with that? What's wrong with having some of the most successful people on the planet say, you know what, we're trying to get to the bottom of it.
The law says that the committee has to be fair and balanced. And a committee of 2 billionaires, or now one, is not fair and balanced. And what we know they're trying to do is advance a very specific ideological agenda that will serve the interests of corporations. They say so. They want to cut the regulatory protections that give us clean air, clean food, safe workplaces, economic justice, and they want to cut government spending. If they were interested in efficiency, there's a lot they could do. For example, they could cut spending on drug prices for consumers and taxpayers. They could eliminate $100 billion a year in waste to privatize Medicare. They could cut the Pentagon budget by $100 or $200 billion a year. They could efficiently raise taxes on the corporations who can pay for it.
Okay, so a lot of that are things that Democrats talk about. And I know you say that you're nonpartisan.
Right.
Do you want to see DOGE succeed? We have a $36 trillion deficit. And that is going to climb by the tens of trillions, no matter if there's a Democrat in the White House or a Republican in the White House in the foreseeable future. Do you want to see him succeed?
Well, it depends what succeed means. If the objective is to make the government more efficient, of course I want it to succeed. But cutting regulations that have a net benefit to society is not efficient. Cutting programs to help poor people that pay for themselves is not efficient. Permitting corporate subsidies to continue is not efficient.
Do you think your argument is fair and balanced?
Defense contractors is not efficient. I'm sorry?
Do you think your argument is fair and balanced?
I think my argument is evidence-based, unlike the claims that cutting regulation will help the economy or help the government, or that cutting programs for the most vulnerable is efficient when we're refusing to raise money from the class of billionaires and corporations that have gotten richer in the last decades than they have ever been in the history of the United States.
Let me leave you with this, Robert, and I thank you for the time. Do you plan on going to the Supreme Court? You think this is where it goes?
We're just at the district court right now. We're going to take it one step at a time. But we're happy to talk to you as the case moves forward.
We'll have you back. Robert Weissman is with Public Citizen. Thanks for being with us tonight here on the Hill. Appreciate it, sir. All right, still to come tonight, the president makes a big announcement on AI right after inviting some of the wealthiest men on the planet to his inauguration. And the National Prayer Service Bishop, did you see this? Lectured the president and the vice president today inside the National Cathedral. What was that all about? Full panel, other side.
Tonight, a NewsNation exclusive. A Diddy accuser comes forward with what she says is proof to back up her claims. And only Banfield has it. See the bombshell evidence for the first time. Banfield tonight, 10/9 Central, only on NewsNation.
People who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals.
Welcome back. That's President Trump right there, and the Vice President, J.D. Vance, getting, you could say, lectured at during today's National Prayer Service. The Reverend Marion Budd, a bishop of the Episcopal Diocese here in Washington, pleading with the president on the issues of immigration and LGBTQ issues. Watch here for a second Vice President Vance's reaction at one point.
There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives.
Following the service, Trump, the president, was asked about the sermon, and here's what he said.
Mr. President, what did you think of the sermon? What did you think of the sermon? What did you think of the sermon? What did you think of the sermon?
What did you think? Did you like it? Did you find it exciting? Not too exciting, was it? I didn't think it was a good service, no.
Full panel. Here with me now, Linda Tran is a former senior advisor to the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Scott Bolden, NewsNation political contributor, Denise Gitsum, NewsNation political contributor as well, and T.W. Origi, former communications aide to Senator Lindsey Graham. Hello to you all. Nice to have you all in.
Hello.
Appreciate it. They went there this morning as this was the last inaugural event, right? So kicked off basically 24 hours before that. This is down the road here in Washington. They think, Denise, that they're walking into a service, and they kind of got lectured at.
Yeah, I mean, most people don't like the intermingling of, politics and religion. And I find it so disrespectful because I really feel like when you go there to be blessed, you're there to receive like a blessing and love from God. That's what church is. That's what it's about. It's not about having someone's political agenda shoved down your throat. And I just find that if those aren't safe places for people like the president, the leader of the free world to go and actually worship God and connect in a deep, meaningful way, then I don't know where in America is left to go.
Well, there is no safer place, though. What's wrong with the minister
You know, the Episcopalians will tell you what they think. Presenting a different view. He's heard that view before. That church and God and love are one, and these are human beings. And it was a humanitarian approach. They're not all criminals, and God made all of us, and He does not make mistakes. What's wrong with hearing that as part of a prayer breakfast?
Right spot to do that.
Well, look, I mean, if you're looking for corroboration for the bishop, look no further than Pope Francis, who was also asked publicly what he thought about the then incoming president's potential persecution of these particular groups. And he himself said that he thought it would be very troubling.
That's the National Cathedral. That is an event to pray for our nation and the incoming president. And that bishop selfishly lectured the incoming president of the United States about a policy decision he makes, which is removing people who crossed our border illegally, starting with violent criminals. That's what she chose to do. It was a massive swing and a miss. I think it makes her look vain. That's a deadly sin in my book. I think you would not see that from somebody like Timothy Dolan, who gave the prayer yesterday at the other day at the inauguration. So yeah, very disrespectful in my opinion.
On a lighter note, did you lose your voice at the balls last night?
It's been a very long few days, Blake. Thanks for pointing it out on television.
Just a short time ago, by the way, the president made a historic announcement for the future of artificial intelligence in the U.S. OpenAI, SoftBank, and Oracle are planning a joint venture which is called Stargate, which will build AI infrastructure in the U.S.
It'll ensure the future of technology. What we want to do is we want to keep it in this country. China is a competitor and others are competitors. We want it to be in this country, and we're making it available.
It comes just a day after, you could have called it Billionaires Row at the inauguration. Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Sundar Pichai of Google, Elon Musk, Tim Cook was there as well, all sitting alongside of each other. And so here's what I noticed, right? You've got that yesterday, and I'm like, wow, those folks are sitting with the cabinet. And as often it is with Donald Trump, the story is never over. Because fast forward the next day, after the first, second, and fourth wealthiest men on the planet are within feet of the president of the United States, in comes the third wealthiest man, Larry Ellison, on the planet into the White House. And I asked this question yesterday, TW, and I'll ask it again today, as there seemed to be a little bit of validation today. What is the message that Donald Trump is trying to send?
The message of today is about AI.
No, I know, but what is the message that Trump is trying to send by having those folks around him within a 28-hour period? That's not coincidental.
Well, I don't think it's coincidental, but I do think when it comes to AI, I don't want to understate this because it is the greatest existential threat and opportunity that we face. Sam Altman, Larry Ellison are deeply involved in AI. We need to get the government and private industry working together. It is clear that the business community has come around to Donald Trump like we have not seen, like we did not see in the previous go around. But it's not like this is just a Republican thing. Like it's just billionaires who are cozying up to a president.
I'm not saying it is. I'm just making the observation. What do you think the message is here?
I think the message is very clear that Donald Trump has brought the tech bros to heel. And that is why he trotted them out and put them in the
Are you good with the tech bros, the tech bros line? Like that's...
I hate it.
I think it's fine to refer to them that way. I think people know what I'm talking about. But point being, he used those few seats that he had at the Capitol Rotunda because he wanted to do that dog and pony show. Today is a continuation of that in many ways, although much more substantive of a rollout. But I think it's clear he wants to show that they wanted his approval.
I think if Kamala Harris won the election, that those tech giants would have lined up behind her as well.
You think so?
What's bothered? Of course they would have, because the next 4 years, the government needs private sector and private sector needs the governor. The real question, the real question is, not what they represent, but what are they going to do with their money and business muscle? Are they going to make this country great, or are they going to help the least lost and left out? How is the government and the president going to use them to move this country forward? Because absolute power corrupts, and the threat is corruption there with money in government. But what are you going to do to make America greater?
Before I get to Denise, you know infrastructure better than anyone else. So
Everybody loves infrastructure.
So what is today all about?
Well, look, I actually think it's a pretty good announcement. I'm always going to say the truth. And the fact that they are going to make significant investments in AI infrastructure in particular is really important for the nation. I think TW was saying this before. It also, by the way, will probably have a good halo effect for some of the folks who care about climate, because we're going to need to work on grid resilience in order to support all of this AI infrastructure.
Well, I've never seen this many cool people surrounding any Republican in my life. And so I think this is a brilliant political move. What it also does is it brings all the other sectors that have been so resistant to Trump in line. They're saying, man, if these richest, most powerful people in the world are going to bow the knee to this guy, most of whom have been donating to Democrats forever, then it shows that Donald Trump has consolidated everybody. So get in line, because even the wealthiest cannot resist him.
I don't know that he's consolidated everybody, but
I mean,
there's
a lot
certain
of them.
kind of consolidation.
He tweeted, everyone wants to be his friend.
Well, you all were probably rubbing shoulders with him over the weekend.
Thank y'all.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Look at them. They didn't deny that, Blake. Don't miss that. They went like, did you see what he did? He went like this.
Not going to make you count to 1,000.
That's right.
I can.
Still
Hanging around with those billionaires.
Harvard, did you see this? Harvard settles multiple anti-Semitism lawsuits today. Think that's coincidental? Leland Vittert, host of On Balance, Other Side. How about this for timing? A day after President Trump takes office, Harvard has settled 2 anti-Semitism lawsuits. The university will now provide additional protections for Jewish students. It will also adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. It comes after Harvard, along with, as you'll remember, several of the top universities in this country, faced major protests. Harvard's former president, Claudine Gay, resigning following her controversial testimony up on Capitol Hill. Leland Vittert, host of On Balance, joins me now. Just so happens to come now.
Yeah, we're not trained to believe in coincidences. Nope. There are no coincidences in life, and you saw, and you guys carried Sam Altman, Larry Ellison, and the head of SoftBank at the White House. The world is changing rapidly and reorganizing. Things happen slowly and then very quickly. We are in the very quick phase of the change to Donald Trump. And we've talked about this so many times, and we're going to keep covering it because there's going to be new examples. That what was resistance to Donald Trump in 2017 in this coalescing of an anti-Trump movement has now fallen down and is now reconstituting around Donald Trump as a we can make a lot of money here movement.
It's, as you mentioned, the event at the White House. Basically, the government missed the internet, the government missed social media, AI. I wonder if we are in this moment right now where we are trying to get ahead of it and whether we can.
Oh, boy. We only have 30 seconds.
It's a big philosophical question.
Okay.
That was just one of the questions that came to me as I was sitting there.
You need somebody like Steyerwalt, one of these guys who can go back to some Greek philosopher and pull
You got George Will coming up on the show.
Yeah, maybe George can answer that question.
What are you talking to George Will about?
I've never known government to be the answer, really, to anything much other than national defense.